Welcome to my presentation on my chosen leader for this project, which is Mike Krzyzewski. And because his name's kind of hard to say, I will be referring to him as Coach K throughout this presentation. Just a little background info on Coach K. He is the head basketball coach, men's basketball coach at Duke University. He still is coaching there as of this year, and he has no plans on retiring anytime soon. Some statistics on his career. He has 1,132 wins to 344 losses. He has won 5 national championships. Duke has taken 12 trips to the Final Four. And also on his off time during the summer, he has been offered the job of coaching Team USA. This is very prominent because you are taking the top players in all of the NBA and bringing them onto one team. That is a lot of star power to be able to merge into one team. Usually teams are only used to having that one star players. So, we've got LeBron James, you have Carmelo Anthony, Russell Westbrook, Steph Curry, Paul George, all of these star players coming together under one roof. And Coach K was able to use his leadership skills along with his coaching ability to take that team to 3 consecutive Olympic gold medals. His career actually started as a player at West Point, which is the military academy for the Army in upstate New York, and he played under Bob Knight there. After he graduated, he actually enlisted in the Army and went and served. When he resigned, that is officially when his coaching career started. So he resigned from the Army, and Bob Knight had taken a job at Indiana University. So while Bob was there, he reached out to Coach K and offered him a graduate assistant position underneath him. So he took this, went and worked at Indiana University, and from there he was offered the head coaching job at his alma mater. So he took that job at Army West Point. He was a head coach there for a couple years, and then it was time to make the big decision, which I will explain on the next slide. This big decision is where he was going to head coach next. It was between Iowa State or Duke University. This decision was not an easy one. It was one of the biggest ones of his career up until this point, and it was going to determine a lot going into his future. Both schools very high in the athletics world, but it came down to the influence of one of his mentors, of Colonel Rogers, who basically was a father figure to Coach K when Coach K's father died while he was in school. And Colonel Rogers kind of took him under his wing, had a ton of influence over him, and basically was a second father. And Colonel Rogers had this gut feeling that he needed to take this job at Duke and to see where it would lead. So because of that, Coach K ended up deciding on Duke University. So while at Duke, he started in 1980, his coaching career, and it did not go well to start off. It was a failure in the beginning. He was not winning, the teams were not meshing. It was overall just not good. But then in 1982, things thought that they were going to start to go upwards. In 1982, Coach K recruited one of the top incoming freshmen in the whole entire country. And this was said to be the team that would make him prominent. But unfortunately, it did not help. He did not get many more wins than he was. His leadership style was not fully developed, and it was showing. But he was still young. Still, 2 years later in 1984, he still had a losing record at Duke. He was barely getting to win number 39, and there was a lot of pressure from the outside world, so boosters, the fans, to fire Coach K. 4 years was technically a decent amount of time in a school, and if you weren't performing, then you would most likely be fired and have to go find another job. But the athletic director believed in Coach K and knew that it was going to take patience and time. So he signed Coach K to a contract extension, and good thing he did, because that top recruiting class in 1982, on their senior year, Coach K had a winning season, and the team went all the way to the Final Four. This year was the beginning of the success that Coach K has had at Duke, and that failure in the beginning has only further enhanced his leadership traits and skills to this point. So Coach K bases his leadership on a certain amount of traits, and number one in his book is integrity and trust. Below that would be emotional intelligence, confidence, sociability, and determination. I want to go back to the integrity and trust. There's a quote on the page that I'm going to read, and it reads, "I think you have to be trustworthy. You have to take the time to develop a relationship that's so strong with each individual player and hopefully with the team that they will trust you. They let you in, and if they let you in, you can teach. If they don't let you in, you're never going to get there." So this quote was in response to asking him what his top leadership characteristic was, or which one he thought was number one. And this shows a lot, but it's also very simple and to the point, which is something that I personally really like. If there's no trust going both ways on a team, then you're not going to get anywhere. If the players don't trust you, and if the coach doesn't trust his players, nothing will work. But you have to, each player on your team has a specific role that they are best at or that they are skilled at, and each player is different. So by building those specific relationships, you gain that trust, and you also show that you're willing to put in the time and the effort it takes to fully build that team to the best it can be. And once those players realize that, then the coach is technically let in, and the whole world of the actual teaching can finally take place. And that was really big for Coach K. He didn't matter if it took time, because he knew that the time would be worth it in the end. Coach K's style combines many different leadership styles into his own version. Whether it's the laissez-faire style or the transformational style, he kind of picks and chooses from each and puts them into one. So as part of, he does use laissez-faire style a lot, and he uses this especially with his assistant coaches. So you have assistant coaches on your team, and they are skilled. They have specialties, and he allowed them to use them, and he empowered his assistant coaches to go and take the lead, make decisions. But then Coach K was always there just as an oversight when those things were happening. So, for example, Steve, one of his assistant coaches, is a top coach in defense. So when one practice came, it was defense time. So Steve took the reins. He basically was the head coach of that practice. They came up with a plan. Coach K basically approved it, but also gave insights into, okay, well, maybe let's do this, and let's try this. But also Steve was like, hey, let's try this, and we've never done it before. And Coach K was more than happy to take that into account. So Coach K really was known for empowering the people underneath him to then go and make the decisions, and Coach K would be there to give feedback, and if anyone needed help, he'd be there for that. But he was never the one that had to control every single minute of every single day, because he knew that that was going to lead to disaster. Overall, he has some very basic leadership lessons that he is followed by throughout his coaching career and also just in the business world as well. And number one is to be the best that you can be every single day rather than to focus just on winning. When you have a mindset of only winning, you're not focusing on what's really going to get you to winning. Winning is a success. Winning is an end product. It's not getting you to that end product. Getting you to that end product is truly putting the effort to be the best that you know you can be. If every single player on your team as a basketball team are playing to the best of their ability, the win will eventually come. That's going to be a byproduct of everyone putting their heart and soul and their skills to the specific uses that they are known for. And Coach K was a big believer in that. Next, he taught that you always have to be flexible. In the college basketball world, your teams are constantly changing due to players graduating college or going to the NBA. And so you have to recruit new players. Well, not every team is going to be the same. So you have to adjust. You have to make adjustments as to how you're going to lead each different team. And but you have to stick to your core principles. So that's what the quote in the bottom is mainly talking about, is how Coach K always stuck to his core principles, so those leadership traits in the beginning, but then how he went about putting those in place is where things were adjusted based on the culture that was underneath him. Maybe a certain player he didn't have a very good spot in, or he was low in a skill in this style, and you have to make adjustments depending on who your coaches are, who the athletic director is, things like that. So you always have to be flexible and be willing to try new things. Next, he would teach that you have to hire and recruit for the culture that you want. So he wanted players that were going to be trustworthy, that were going to be honest, that had good morals behind them. And if he didn't see these in a player, then he wasn't going to recruit that player, even if they were the number one player in the country. If someone was rude to their mom during an interview with Coach K, that was an automatic red flag for him, because then he knew that they would be rude to him. That's not the style and culture that he wanted. So no matter, even if they had the best skills in the entire country, if they showed that they didn't have the same morals and ethics that Coach K wanted on his team, they would not be a recruit for Duke University. And he followed that to a T to this day. Last but not least, he always taught to create ownership. Have ownership over your team, but not to the controlling part. Your leadership style is what's going to make that team your team. So create that sense of ownership, but not to the controlling points. And just last but not least, those are only covering a very few and very minimal amount of leadership styles and traits and lessons that Coach K has shown over his almost 40-year career. There are 1,000 more, but those are the ones that have stuck out to me the most as to be the most important and kind of the most prominent ones that he has talked about and also his players has said. But in the end, Coach K has become one of the top leaders in the world, in business and in sports as a whole. He has developed his own style of leadership by combining aspects from so many others to create the one that works the best for him, and it has led to success and excellence while sticking to his morals and what he truly believes in. Have a great night. Thank you, guys.